Hello, hello. I am back again to talk about the systems of equations. And we're going to be starting with the elimination method today. We're going to do the first video, which is about addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and flip to page 9 and let's get started. So we've got 4 main steps with addition and subtraction. So the first one is to line up your variables, add or subtract either of the equations, solve, and then substitute and find your other variable. So it's kind of different from the substitution method because it's different steps, but essentially you're doing that same process. We are looking to see where these two linear systems intersect and at what point do they intersect. So for this first step, we're going to line up the variables and coefficients. So that means we want to get, the x's on the same side and the y's on the same side. So when we write this first one, we'll have, let's do our x's first. So x first, then y. So we'll have our 3x plus 4y equals 22. There's our first one. And then our second one, we have 3x minus 4y equals 14. So we lined them up. So now we need to either add or subtract our, linear systems. So we need to look at what we should do, whether we should add or subtract. Well, we're going to be doing all the math down. And for this first one, we're just going to add because we can see that our y's will cancel out when we add down. So our first step is to add our 3x and 3x, and that's going to get us a 6x. And for our second part, we have a plus 4y and minus 4y. Well, that's going to give you 0y. These are going to cancel out. And that's going to equal 22 plus 14, which gives you 36. So you're just adding down for each one. And the biggest thing I want you guys to see with these problems is if I were to write it, flip these two. If I were to flip these two equations. Well, if I have 3x minus 4y equals 14. And then I have 3x plus 4y equals 22. According to the, commutative property of addition, we're going to get the exact same thing. We'll still have 6x plus 0y equals 36. So I want you guys to see whichever way you line them up, whichever one's on top or on bottom, you're going to get the exact same when we're doing addition and subtraction. All right, so we did the first 2 steps. We subtracted it down, and we're at this step. We have our 6x plus 0y equals 36. Well, let's go ahead and solve for that one variable. So we have 6x equals 36. What a terrible color to choose. Well, how do I solve for x? You got to isolate your variable. You have 6 times x. Do the opposite, which is divide. So divide both sides by 6. And x equals 6 in this problem. And then lastly, step 4, it says to substitute that value to find your other value. So we have our x. So let's go ahead and use, the first equation. So we've got our 3x plus 4y equals 22. Well, we're going to take this number, take our 6, and plug it in for this x. So we've got 3 times 6 plus 4y equals 22. And as you see, we have that one variable that we can solve for. So 3 times 6 gives you 18. So 18 plus 4y equals 22. Now we got to get our variable on one side and our number on the other. So we have to move over this 18. So since it's a positive 18, go ahead and subtract. So minus 18 on both sides. So we have 4y equals negative 4. Well, how do we solve for y? Divide both sides by 4. And y equals negative 1. And lastly, as you know from before, we have to write our answer as an ordered pair of x y. So our answer here will be 6, negative 1. And that is the solution to the system. So here's all of our work that we did. A little messy, but hopefully you guys are getting the hang of it. Let's go ahead and jump to our second example. So again, we're going to be doing adding. I kind of labeled these right here to kind of guide us through these problems of what you can, refer back to and what you can see how you can see what we did, excuse me. So remember, our first step is to line up the variables and the coefficients. But as you guys can see, they're already done for us. We have the x in the same spot. We have the y's in the same spot. And we have our equals in the same spot. So we don't need to move anything. So all we got to do is draw our line. And we know we're going to add, because if you add, our y's will cancel out. So let's go ahead and double check how that happens. So when you add down, you've got 2 plus 6. That gives you 8x. Then you have positive 5 minus 5. That gives you a plus 0y. And then equals your 7 minus 9, or 7 plus negative 9, which gives you 8. So we know that you can cross that out. So you have 8x equals 8. Well, how do we solve for x? Divide by 8 on both sides. X equals 1. Well, now we need to find our y value. So let's go ahead and use our first equation. You've got 2x plus 5y equals 17. Well, let's go ahead and plug this 1 in for x. So we've got 2 in parentheses times 1 plus 5y equals 17. Well, this is going to change to 2 plus 5y equals 17. And now we need to solve for y. So subtract your 2. On both sides, we have 5y equals 15. Divide by 5 on both sides. Y equals 3. So that means our answer is our ordered pair, which is 1, 3. All right, let's go ahead and jump to our next problem, example number 3. And we know for this one we will be subtracting. I gave us that hint, so make sure you guys notice the differences. So, for our first step, we need to line up our variables. So we've got our x plus y equals 101. And then 2.5x plus y equals 164. So I lined them up, and I'm going to draw my line. Well, the biggest hint to let you guys know whether you're adding or subtracting is the signs of, these variables. So if we see in our last one, these two are opposite signs with our 5s. We have a plus 5 and we have a minus sign, or a minus 5. So that lets us know we're going to add. But for this one, we have 2 positive y's. So that's going to be our big hint that we're going to subtract. So we're going to subtract these values. So let's go ahead and do our subtraction. We've got our x's when we add down. So that's 1 minus 2.5, which gives you negative 1.5x. These both have 1's in front of it. So 1 minus 1 gives you your 0. So plus 0y equals 101 minus 164, which gives you negative 63. Well, let's go ahead and kind of cancel out our y's. So that's negative 1.5x equals negative 63. Well, how do we solve for x? We divide by negative 1.5 on both sides, and x equals 42. Don't be intimidated by big numbers. Use a calculator if needed. So we found our x value. Now let's find our y. So we're going to plug it in, let's say, to our first one for x. So that's going to get you your 42 plus y equals 101. Well, how do we solve for y? Subtract 42 on both sides. So y equals 59, because 101 minus 42 gets you 59. So that means our answer is 42, 59. Because remember, this is your x value and this is your y value. All right, example number 4. Another subtracting problem. So let's see, are our variables lined up? Yes, they are, so we don't need to rewrite them. Let's just go ahead and draw our line. And we know we're going to subtract because these are the same sign. These are the same sign. Your goal is to cancel them out. That is your goal. So when we subtract, we're subtracting between every single thing. So 6 minus 2 gives you 4a. Negative 3 minus negative 3 gets you a plus 0b. And then equals 27 minus 11 gets you 16. So you have 4a equals 16. Divide by 4 on both sides. So a equals 4. Well, now let's go ahead and plug that value into the first one. So you've got 6 times 4 minus 3b equals 27. Well, 6 times 4 gives you 24, minus 3b equals 27. How do you solve for b? You got to move over your 24 by subtracting. So minus 24 on both sides, you get negative 3b equals 3. Divide by negative 3 on both sides. b equals negative 1. So our answer will have 4, negative 1. This is a, this is b. I know this is kind of a longer video and this is kind of tough, but please do the best you can. And if you guys have questions, do not hesitate to ask. Go ahead and cross off your elimination method, booklet 1. All right, and I'll see you guys in the next video.